You pick up a book. 30 pages in, your mind drifts. You check your phone, scroll, return. Read 3 more pages, phone again. You cannot remember what you just read. This is not laziness. This is not a choice. Your brain has been rewired. In 2004, the average person focused on a single screen for 2.5 minutes before switching. By 2012, that dropped to 75 seconds. By 2020, 47 seconds. Not even a minute. Half of all observations fell below 40 seconds. Gloria Mark at University of California, Irvine tracked this collapse for 20 years using computer logging software that monitored every screen switch, every click, every pivot. She published her findings in her book, Attention Span, in January 2023. The median is 40 seconds. That means half of all the time you spend looking at any screen, you switch away in less than 40 seconds. Your attention does not linger, it flits. Kinetic attention, Mark calls it. Dynamic, restless, broken. Professors at 33 universities interviewed by The Atlantic in October 2024 reported the same pattern. Students struggle through challenging texts or shut down when confronted with ideas they do not understand. Slate reported in February 2024 that students are intimidated by anything over 10 pages and walk away from readings of as little as 20 pages with no real understanding. 15 years ago, professors assigned 45 pages or more per class. Now they assign 30 pages or less. Students still do not read them. Elizabeth O'Connor, Associate Chair of English at Washington College, noticed the shift after COVID. Students do not attempt the reading. They are not even apologetic. Several students in her English 101 class asked why they should be expected to read something before class. They went through 12 years of English and never had to do that before. Among 13-year-olds reading daily for fun, the decline is steeper. 35% in 1984, 17% in 2019 to 2020. A study published by the National Literacy Trust in January 2025 found that daily reading among UK children aged 8 to 11 fell from 32.8% in 2024 to 31.1% in 2025. Among 14 to 16-year-olds, daily reading dropped 10.9 percentage points in 2024 alone. The gap between students eligible for free school meals and those not eligible widened to 3.6 percentage points in 2025, the largest disparity since 2021. It is the best way to support our work. Also comment from which city you are hearing this from. This script is researched and factual, using sources from Gloria Mark's published research in Attention Span, published by Hanover Square Press in January 2023, the preprints.org comprehensive longitudinal analysis from December 2024 titled The Systematic Decline in Reading Habits and the National Literacy. Trusts Children and Young People's Reading. In 2025, report published in January 2025 by the UK Department for Education. These are peer-reviewed academic sources and government education data, not opinion pieces. Now back to the information. A narrative review published in ResearchGate in October 2025, titled Short-Form Video Use and Sustained Attention Analyzed Studies from 2019 to 2025. Short-form video platforms like TikTok and Instagram Reels trigger repeated dopamine release, creating powerful reinforcement loops. Students with more than 4 hours of daily TikTok viewing admitted in qualitative interviews to attention difficulties. They struggled to concentrate on homework. They frequently interrupted study sessions to check TikTok. They found long reading assignments boring compared to the quick dopamine hits of online videos. A study by Yan and colleagues in 2024 found that individuals with high short video use tendencies showed significantly lower markers of prefrontal executive function, including reduced midfrontal theta power on EEG, alongside poorer self-control abilities. John Hutton, a pediatrician and director of the Reading and Literacy Discovery Center at Cincinnati Children's Hospital, called TikTok a dopamine machine. Videos as short as 6 seconds create rapid-fire addiction cycles. The For You page delivers 95% algorithm-curated content. Variable reward timing keeps your brain in constant anticipation. Infinite scroll eliminates natural stopping points. Stanford research showed that this intermittent absence of the like proves more engaging than consistent rewards, exactly like a casino slot machine. Users spend an average of 52 minutes daily on TikTok alone. Platform-specific neural effects show 40% higher gamma activity among TikTok users due to rapid context switching, according to a PMC published study in August 2024 titled Modern Day High. Spectral analysis linked this to increased cognitive load in the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, decreased gray matter density in the prefrontal cortex of heavy social media users, the same brain region affected by cocaine use. A 4-year study found decreased cerebellum volume in high social media users. A longitudinal design in July 2024 followed 189 adolescents. Over 3 years, the high social media use group showed stronger reduction in cortical thickness of the lateral prefrontal cortex and reduced surface area of the temporal parietal junction. Alpha waves declined during engagement, beta and gamma waves heighten during interaction and continue after, indicating extended cognitive excitation. The algorithm is designed to maximize time spent on the application. TikTok stands apart because feeds are not based on conscious selections. Artificial intelligence presents content and utilizes user reactions to determine preferences, creating a continuous cycle. Short video usage intensity was positively related to addiction, TikTok brain, and decreased attention control. A systematic review in March 2025 found brain rot leads to emotional desensitization, cognitive overload, negative self-concept. It is associated with doom scrolling, zombie scrolling, social media addiction, all linked to psychological distress, anxiety, depression. These impair executive functioning, memory planning, decision-making. Productivity and motivation drop. Asif and Kazi in 2024 found negative correlation between short video hours and academic achievement. Students with more daily TikTok viewing had lower exam scores. Nowadays, with the abundance of YouTube videos and films, people are constantly exposed to shorter shot lengths. Film and TV directors and editors design these shot lengths to cater to what they believe will capture people's attention. They believe that rapid changes in shot lengths create arousal, which we know to be true. We find ourselves in a peculiar cycle with all forms of media. According to Gloria Mark's research, people check their emails an average of 77 times a day. Mark found that in the most recent years, attention spans have plummeted to an average of about 47 seconds on the screen before switching to a different site, with a median time of fewer than 40 seconds. A study published in Whitman Wire in March 2025 referenced Dr. Gloria Mark's research at the University of California, Irvine, noting that in most recent years, attention spans have plummeted to an average of about 47 seconds on the screen before switching to a different site. Studies done with people in offline environments show that people in the medical profession, doctors and nurses, make more errors when their attention is shifting. Pilots make more errors. It harms performance in the sense that it takes more time to get any single task done when you are shifting your attention back and forth. Imagine you're trying to write a paper. You switch your attention to check email and then switch back. It takes approximately 25 minutes to recover from an interruption and return to the original task. 25 minutes. A comprehensive meta-analysis published in PMC in December 2024, titled Distractions in Digital Reading, Examined Reading Comprehension Performance. The central finding is that distractions in digital reading environments significantly impair reading comprehension performance. Individuals at the college level and beyond typically engage in more cognitively demanding reading tasks, which place a greater burden on working memory and require more sustained attention than those assigned to elementary or secondary school students. Consequently, attentional distractions in the online environment are more likely to disrupt reading efficiency. College students are typically exposed to more complex forms of attentional distraction than elementary and middle school students. Hence, college students require a higher level of cognitive control to manage these interferences, which can lead to increased mental strain and reduced efficiency in processing reading tasks. According to the latest Nations Report Card, reading scores among fourth graders in 2024 were lower than in 2022 and even lower than in 2019. The most recent NAAP reading assessment in 2024 revealed a continued decline in reading scores for both 4th and 8th grade students, compared to 2022 and 2019. Fewer than a third of students nationwide are performing at or above the NAEP proficient level. Around 40% of 4th graders and 1/3 of 8th graders are performing below the NAEP basic level, suggesting difficulties with fundamental reading skills. This is the largest percentage of 8th graders scoring below basic ever recorded by NAEP, and the largest for 4th graders since 2002. The 2024 NAEP data also indicates a widening gap between the highest and lowest performing students, with those already struggling falling further behind. When you compare the 2024 results to earlier assessments, the average reading score for 4th graders is not significantly different from 1992, while 8th grade scores show a clear downward trend over the past decade. If you value documented research and cognitive science like this, subscribe. It is the best way to support our work. Also comment from which city you are hearing this from. This script is researched and factual using sources from peer-reviewed journals published in PMC, including Modern Day High. The Neurocognitive Impact of Social Media Usage from August 2024, Distractions in Digital Reading, a meta-analysis from December 2024, and the Nation's Report Card NAEP data from 2024 published by the National Center for Education Statistics. Now back to the information. The test and some by fads coming out of schools of education. The widely discussed decline in phonics education in favor of the balanced literacy approach advocated by education expert Lucy Calkins has had measurable impacts. Calkins has more recently come to accept the need for more phonics instruction. A professor writing in Slate in February 2024 observed that students abruptly stopped attempting to sound out unfamiliar words and instead paused until they recognized the whole word as a unit. In a recent class session, a smart, capable student was caught short by the word circumstances when reading a text out loud. The result of this vibes-based literacy is that students never attain genuine fluency in reading. Even aside from the impact of smartphones, their experience of reading is constantly interrupted by their intentionally cultivated inability to process unfamiliar words. Add some new ones, like connecting claims to evidence, the supposed general skill of reading nonfiction, and close reading. The Common Core was also supposed to do away with the standard practice of limiting kids to their individual reading levels, which could be well below their grade level, but evidence shows that instead it led to an increase in that practice at higher grade levels. Schools continue to teach reading comprehension by providing students with the format they would see on a test, a paragraph or two excerpted from a longer text, followed by comprehension questions designed to foster and measure skills. One problem is that this approach turns reading into a joyless exercise. Another is that it puts the cart before the horse to such an extent that the horse disappears. Instead of immersing students in texts and bringing in skills to enable their understanding and analysis, it tries to use simple or disconnected passages as instruments for developing skills that cannot be developed in the absence of rich content. What you end up with is students who have few skills and little understanding of how to read and analyze a lengthy text, or even a novel. Pedagogical failures, COVID disruptions, all colliding at once. The impact will inevitably continue to be felt for the next decade or more, until the last cohort affected by the mass pivot to online finally graduates. But the marked decline in reading resilience started before the pandemic. The students being seen in college now would have already been in high school during the school closures. Hence, they would be better equipped to get something out of the online format, and, more importantly, their basic reading competence would have already been established. The pandemic did not cause this, it accelerated a process already in motion. One freshman told Nicholas Dames at Columbia that she never had to read a book cover to cover in high school. Shortening reading assignments or removing them altogether is harmful for students who need to build their reading stamina. If they are only reading short passages, they will not have the tools they need to read longer pieces or full-length novels. If they do not understand the reading in full, they will not be able to participate in class and understand their peers and their own ideas. PIN America documented 22,810 cases of book bans in 45 states since 2021, never before seen in the life of any living American. In 2024 to 2025, 6,870 bans, affecting nearly 4,000 unique titles across 23 states. Florida led with 2,304 bans. Texas had 1,781. Tennessee 1,622. 44% of banned books featured people of color, 39% featured LGBTQ plus people. Crank and fantasy author Sarah J. Maas with 162 instances. The book with the most bans was A Clockwork Orange by British author Anthony Burgess, a more than 60-year-old satiric novel depicting a dystopian future full of violent young people and an extremist government. Within PEN America's title level index, 2,520 book ban cases were influenced by pressure imposed from the presence or threat of state laws. Out of those, however, only 3% of the bans were triggered by a law requiring the removal of a book. The rest, 97%, came from bans caused by the fear that districts had of being out of compliance. Vast numbers of books removed from shelves, pending investigation, and permanently banned came as a result of fear of legislation by school boards, administrators, and educators. Never before in the life of any living American have so many books been systematically removed from school libraries across the country. Never before have so many states passed laws or regulations to facilitate the banning of books, including bans on specific titles statewide. Utah and South Carolina enacted state policies in 2024 that introduced mechanisms to create state-mandated no-read lists. Tennessee enacted such a mechanism in 2024, but it had not yet been reported as used as of December 2025. In July 2025, the Trump administration removed almost 600 books from Department of Defense education activity schools. In response, a dozen students, ranging in age from pre-K to 11th grade, sued, alleging the book bans violated their First Amendment rights. The books removed included content around slavery, Native American history, LGBTQ plus people and history, as well as parts of the AP psychology curriculum. Statement. Professor Andrew Tobolowsky at the College of William and Mary sees a deeper irony. If college-level skills are declining, he asks, of what use have all the pedagogical consultants and all the emphasis on teaching to the test been in public schools? Meanwhile, college professors, finding it necessary to teach these skills, have more students, more service responsibilities, more classes, and less security than ever. In short, professors say students are coming into college with a host of new and alarming learning challenges, including fragmented and distracted thinking, along with sharper limits on what they are willing or able to do. Video will shift communication once again in an equally profound way. The change in media environments, where we are entering into a hybrid oral written culture, is a much longer-term change that is in some ways more important than any change brought about by the pandemic or testing culture. If it means listening rather than reading, that is where we are headed. Humanity is going to take its course no matter what anyone tries to do about it, but the cost is measurable. Reading serves as a cornerstone for knowledge acquisition across all disciplines and life stages. Without consistent and comprehensive reading, the ability to engage deeply with complex ideas atrophies. This decline in reading is not just about preference. It is a significant problem. Their students struggle through challenging texts or shut down when confronted with ideas they do not understand. Most students still were not doing the reading, and when they were, more and more struggled to understand it. Some simply gave up. Their distraction levels went through the roof. They had trouble following instructions. Sometimes, students set expectations, such as writing a final research paper with at least 25 sources, were unreasonable. Sofia Serafova, associate professor of biology at Davidson College, noted that the ubiquity of smartphones and social media have affected literacy across the board. Children and adults alike are reading in fundamentally different ways. Phones have been shown to interfere with our ability to focus. Apps such as TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram have shifted our reading habits towards short and often fragmentary text. How much each of these influences has shaped today's students is up for debate. Is reading comprehension declining because of the way reading is taught? Or is it because students are learning less about history and science and thus lack context for what they do read? Is social media use necessarily bad if students are creating and consuming new forms of communication that emphasize visual and auditory literacy? The data suggests the problem is multifactorial. Technology, pedagogy, social media, book bans, economic pressures that force students to work part-time jobs, all contributing. But the core mechanism is neurological. The brain adapts. Neuroplasticity means the brain reshapes itself based on repeated experiences. If you spend hours daily on TikTok, your brain optimizes for short bursts. If you never read long texts, your brain never develops the stamina for sustained attention. A 2021 meta-analysis found that attention span in children has declined by approximately 12%. A study published in Health Dynamics in 2025, titled Digital Distractions in Childhood Attention, noted that according to a 2021 meta-analysis, attention span in children has declined by approximately 12%. Recent studies suggest a decline in children's attention spans, attributed to lifestyle changes, increased screen time, overstimulation, and shifts in parenting and educational practices. Results in over-reliance on technology. Many students now turn to book summaries and AI-generated content instead of reading full texts. The academic realm itself is not immune to these changes. Many professors and universities are adapting to this shift in attention by rethinking course designs. But there is a downside. While these innovations can enrich learning by appealing to diverse learning styles, they may also inadvertently contribute to a decline in traditional reading habits. The issue is not just that students are choosing not to read, it is that, for many, deep reading has never been fully cultivated as a skill in the first place. But the decline in reading is about more than distraction. It is also a consequence of broader literacy trends. Recent data suggests that literacy rates among young people in the US have been stagnating or even declining, influenced by factors like underfunded education systems, disparities in early childhood learning opportunities, and shifting academic priorities. For students who already struggle with reading comprehension, the pull of easily accessible multimedia-driven content can make traditional reading feel even more inaccessible. 2024. The most recent NAEP reading assessment revealed a continued decline in reading scores for both 4th and 8th grade students compared to 2022 and 2019. Fewer than a third of students nationwide are performing at or above the NAEP proficient level. Around 40% of 4th graders and 1/3 of 8th graders are performing below the NAEP basic level, suggesting difficulties with fundamental reading skills. This is the largest percentage of 8th graders scoring below basic ever recorded by NAEP, and the largest for 4th graders since 2002. The 2024 NAEP data also indicates a widening gap between the highest and lowest performing students, with those already struggling falling further behind. When you compare the 2024 results to earlier assessments, The average reading score for fourth graders is not significantly different from 1992, while eighth grade scores show a clear downward trend over the past decade. The simple truth is, reading is not happening on the scale it once did. This is not just about preference, it is a significant problem. In August 2025, a judge in Florida overturned parts of the state's 2023 book ban law, saying they were unconstitutional and violated students' First Amendment rights. He said more than 20 books that have been banned in the state should be returned to shelves. They included The Color Purple by Alice Walker, The Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini, The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood, and looking for Alaska by John Green. Green and author Julia Alvarez sued the state and 2 Florida school districts. The students in the Doe DEA schools lawsuit is pending. A bill in Congress, introduced by Democratic Representatives Jamie Raskin and Chrissy Houlihan, would reinstate the nearly 600 books and protect curricula from future federal censorship. Parents and educators are working together to pass school board resolutions and state laws that protect students' right to read. Most Americans oppose book bans. The number of public school parents who are confident that their schools are selecting appropriate books remains high, but the normalization continues. Your brain needs gradual retraining. Track your usage without judgment using built-in screen time tools. Notice your triggers: boredom, stress, loneliness, fear of missing out. Practice the phone pause. Before opening an app, take 3 deep breaths and ask, what am I hoping to get from this? Implement notification batching. Check messages at set times only. Create physical separation. Charge your phone outside your bedroom. Use app timers, but set them 10 minutes longer than your goal to avoid rebellion. Active reading strategies help. Encourage students to engage with texts actively. Underline key points. Jot down questions in the margins. Summarize main ideas after each section. By treating reading as a dialogue with the author rather than a passive activity, students can improve both comprehension and retention. Educators and parents need to model good reading habits and emphasize the irreplaceable value of deep reading. These tools work exactly as designed until they do not. Take the average chat tool, adopted by companies to streamline communication. They were meant to simplify work and organize communication, and do, by sorting conversations into channels. But every new project spawns a new channel, and suddenly you're juggling dozens. Often, for all of those dozens of communication hubs, each channel has its own rhythm and unwritten rules of engagement. Switching between them, no matter how small the task, takes effort. Mark's research shows we interrupt ourselves as often as our devices do. When external interruptions are removed, self-interruptions spike. It is like our brains have grown so used to being pinged, they start pinging themselves. As we have adapted to a world of constant app switching, bouncing around has become our default. And as a result, silence itself has started to feel like something we need to escape, rather than a reprieve from digital noise. The problem is not that TikTok and iPhones are raising attention spans and melting our brains. The problem is that we have lost empathy. There is a litany of recent evidence supporting the claim that students do not read. Humanities professors say they can no longer assign entire books to their students, just snippets and sections, and pray that a few zealous pupils will take it upon themselves to finish the entire text. This new generation of students complain loudly about reading loads that were all but standard even just 15 years ago. The problem is not simply that students are lazy. Many genuinely feel unable or unequipped to grapple with difficult texts. This is a phenomenon that spans all levels of academia, from community colleges to precious Ivy League universities. The National Endowment for the Arts reports that there has been a 7-point decrease in the number of adults who read at least one book a year since 2014. The younger the demographic you choose to look at, the more pronounced the trend becomes. Most research points to the rise of easily accessible entertainment, COVID-19, and advancements in AI as catalysts of this decline. The primary concern is not why this is happening, but what we lose because of it. Reading builds empathy. It forces you to inhabit another consciousness, to see through eyes not your own, to feel what someone else feels. When you read a novel, you're not passively consuming information. You're engaging in theory of mind. You're practicing the mental simulation that allows humans to cooperate, to understand, to connect. Without that practice, empathy atrophies. Studies show that reading literary fiction improves empathy and social cognition. It enhances the ability to understand others' mental states. It improves emotional intelligence. When a generation stops reading, they stop practicing this fundamental human skill in bottle. Though it is worth noting that we as a society do at least attempt to keep other addictive products out of the hands of children. But we can, at the very least, stop actively preventing young people from developing the ability to follow extended narratives and arguments in the classroom. Regardless of their profession or ultimate educational level, they will need those skills. The world is a complicated place. People, their histories and identities, their institutions and work processes, their fears and desires are simply too complex to be captured in a worksheet with a paragraph and some reading comprehension questions. Large-scale prose writing is the best medium we have for capturing that complexity, and the education system should not be in the business of keeping students from learning how to engage effectively with it. These kids are not lazy. We are failing them. Accelerate adoption of science of reading approaches emphasizing systematic phonics, phonemic awareness, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. Design curricula that build knowledge systematically. Stop teaching to the test with disconnected passages. Immerse students in complete texts from early elementary school. Read aloud entire novels, including classic children's literature like Charlotte's Web, instead of using a paragraph or two as a vehicle for comprehension questions. Kids are likely to see reading as an enjoyable experience and to pick up the kind of complex vocabulary and syntax they will need later. It works best to start building knowledge and reading stamina in early elementary school. Hold them accountable for the neurological damage they cause. France has a right to disconnect law that makes it illegal for employers to demand responses after business hours. Similar protections could be extended to students, create tech-free zones in schools, mandate periods of sustained focus without devices, teach students what deep work feels like. Let them experience the satisfaction that comes from completing a difficult task that requires hours of uninterrupted attention. Reverse book bans, protect students' First Amendment rights, trust teachers and librarians to select age-appropriate materials. Stop letting fear and ideology dictate what students can read. These books are not dangerous. Ignorance is dangerous. Illiteracy is dangerous. A generation that cannot think critically is dangerous. This is the logical endpoint of the current trajectory. A nation of people who cannot read, cannot think, cannot connect, who scroll endlessly, dopamine-starved, searching for the next hit, who mistake the constant ping of notifications for human connection, who confuse the endless stream of content for knowledge, who believe they are informed because they have seen 1,000 TikToks but cannot recall a single thing they learned. In January 2025, Harvard researchers were testing an intervention called Supporting Attention and Reading for Kids on students in grades 3 to 5. Funded by the National Institutes of Health, $3.2 million. The study aimed to track 400 students from 6 Texas schools for 4 years to measure improvements in word reading, vocabulary fluency, and comprehension. Everything stopped when the project was terminated in May. Trump administration froze more than $2.2 billion in federal research funding. 25 to 40% of students with reading difficulties experience elevated inattention. Children who struggle with reading often have difficulty focusing, yet they receive ineffective support, with reading and attention addressed separately. Both projects had potential to improve students' lives. Same week, another grant was stopped. Stories, a 4-year project to help multilingual students in grades 2 to 4. $2 million from the Institute of Education Sciences, partnership with Utah State University, University of Texas at Austin, Revere Public Schools in Massachusetts. Terminated. If you train it on short bursts, it optimizes for short bursts. If you train it on sustained attention, it optimizes for sustained attention. The question is not whether we can reverse this. The question is whether we will. Whether we have the collective will to say no to the platforms designed to exploit us. No to the pedagogical fads that strip reading of joy and meaning. No to the book bans that steal stories from children. No to the political interference that shuts down research designed to help struggling students. The research is clear. The mechanisms are understood. The solutions exist. What is missing is action. Communities with multi-generational literacy showed measurably different patterns of neural development in regions associated with language processing and executive function. The study analyzed historical literacy rates, cross-referenced with contemporary neuroimaging data from descendants, and found that cultural practices around reading leave neurological signatures that persist across generations. Not genetic, cultural, learned. Which means it can be unlearned, and is being unlearned, right now, in real time, as we watch. In long, uninterrupted lines of thought that build on each other, layer by layer, until something new emerges. Understanding, empathy, connection. This is what we are losing. This is what we can still choose to save.